Today we have the lovely and talented Dr. Dorothy Martin Neville on, and today we're going to be talking about the richness of being the best you. And don't we all want to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be? And so many times I think, at least for me personally, the mind gets in the way. We have this messaging that's telling us that we're maybe not enough, or we are not going to succeed. And I think there's a lot of truth in your heart. Your heart really has your compass and what you're really all about. So I am so delighted today to have Dr. Dorothy Martin Neville on with us, and we're going to be learning a lot about how to become the best version of you that you can. So welcome, Dorothy. Thank you so much for being here.
It's good to be here. It's good to see you.
Always great to see you. And I'm really excited to learn more about, how do we become the best versions of ourselves that we can be?
Only by taking risks. Only by taking risks and jumping in. We've just a moment ago were mentioning that in reference to you doing this. That
right.
We're always learning, always growing if we choose to. Always learning, always growing, always taking risks and trying new things. Because you don't know the best you until you get there. And the fact is, you're always getting there. There's this process of, one, practicing mindfulness, so you know what's going on in there, right? Practicing mindfulness every day, and I prefer not to even think about it as a practice, but a way of life. That, what am I feeling? What's going on for me? What's my truth, right? And you've got that. The more you have that, the more you have the ability to develop emotional intelligence.
I think that is so true.
Because the more I know what's going on for me, I can tell myself everything's fine, and yet I'm a nervous wreck and can't get it going. Or I keep forgetting things, or I've tried to get out the door 3 times, then everything isn't fine.
Right.
If you were fine, it would be going smoothly, right?
Right.
And so we try to tell ourselves these lies that if we were to tell the truth and say, I'm a nervous wreck at the moment, let me take a minute, let me deep breathe, let me get focused, let me get centered. Then we take that moment and we're present. Then we easily take the keys, take what we need, and peacefully walk out the door. We don't do this back and forth and back and forth.
Right.
Simple little things of being aware of who you are. Then with that, you have the emotional intelligence you can develop.
And why is it that it's so hard to give ourselves that moment, right? We would give our friends, our children, we give everybody else the moment, but why don't we give ourselves that moment?
Because we're already taught we're not enough. We're already taught it's other people make it. We're already taught other people know how to do this naturally. Other people, whatever that other people is to you, we're taught they do this. And what ends up happening is that we get ourselves so stuck by the stories we tell ourselves, the messages we give ourselves. It's no longer what we were told before. It's no longer what we were told before 18. It's no longer what we were told 15 years ago, because all of that's the past.
Right.
What happens is the messages we keep telling ourselves today. And until we're willing to take that risk that says, that's a message I used to get.
Right.
And now if I'm willing to do a reality check, all right, the reality check changes. I had a client once tell me, because I am a business and life coach, that a client told me once she was head of a major hospital here in the United States and told me she'd never done a thing right in her life.
Wow.
Right?
Right.
And I said, wow. Then I wonder how it is you got through med school. I wonder how it is you got your first position. I wonder how it is you reached this level of success. Right. Either you slept with a whole lot of people to get there,
right.
or you're darn good at what you do.
Right.
And she said, excuse me, I'm very good at what I do. I said, okay, welcome back.
Oh.
Welcome back to reality. The reality that says, I am really good at what I do, which is why I am where I am right now. So when I tell myself a story about my ineptness, about whatever it is that my messages are, I can notice with mindfulness, this isn't my truth.
And when you say, though, that we've learned these stories,
right.
How do we learn these stories? Is it what we are taught by our parents? Is it our Where did these stories come from?
One, I don't believe in blame, so let's take blame out of this, okay? It's messages we got from our parents, messages we got from the culture, messages we got in our school system. If we don't have a sense of who we are today, we're going to look at TV, we're going to look at the Kardashians, we're going to look at whomever,
Right.
none of which is natural,
Right.
and we're going to know we're not enough. If instead we step back and look at what's our truth. If I believe in meditation as a way of life. You know, I do it morning, afternoon, and evening. If we stop long enough, what is it that feeds my soul? What is it that feeds my heart? What makes me so excited and glad to be alive? And if I can look at what that is, I'm going to be really happy with who I am. I'm going to be really happy with, this isn't in relationship to anybody else.
Right.
This is me. I believe every one of us is born with a spiritual purpose. And with that spiritual purpose, we're here to make the world a better place. And each one of us do it differently.
Right.
You know, there are a plethora of coaches out here. There's a plethora of financial planners out there. But yet nobody brings to the table exactly what you or I bring to the table. We each bring our own unique gifts based on our history, based on our worldview. And there are some people energetically that are going to resonate with you, where somebody right next to you is saying the same thing, but others will resonate with that person, and some resonate with you. When we realize that me being fully me, fully present in whatever that means at this point in my life, because the woman I am today is not the woman I was 5 years ago, and God willing, it's not the woman I'm going to be in 5 years, right? So if I accept that today I'm the best I can be today, the people that need me here at this moment, who can trust my integrity, who trust my authenticity, who trust my skill and my ability to do what I do, they are going to become my best clients, they are going to become my best friends, they may become my life partner, right?
Right.
Because what they're seeing is who I truly am.
That's good. And how do we, even with our families and our children or our spouses, how do we continue to show up, right? Because we're constantly pulled. And so many times I feel like when I'm talking to friends or clients, everybody's feeling they have to be a little bit different for everyone. And I think
that's exhausting, and I think it's a mistake.
And I think I agree with you.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
exhausting.
that you have to get balanced and be who you are to everyone, right? Like, you know, and show up who you are.
Right.
That's part of being your best self.
It really is. The only thing that changes in each of those relationships is the conversation. You know, if I'm with girlfriends, I am going to be profound 1 minute. I'm going to be outrageous another minute. Right? I'm going to be a lot of fun and humor and laughter another minute.
Right.
It depends on the moment. And with my kids, I'm exactly the same way. More than once asked them, I've been outrageous, and they'll just say, oh, ma, you know. I've been outrageous, but I've also been profound.
Right.
I've also been funny, but I've also been warm and loving. So all of those things are presented to everybody, but in a different way.
Right. And don't you find, though, too, you know, we talk about being our best selves, and sometimes I feel like things are flowing and they're great, and sometimes you feel like, you know, you're hitting bumps in the road, and it seems like when you start to hit them, you hit more and more. And I often wonder, is it because, like, you know, I think that if you look for opportunities, you'll find them.
Right.
If you look for obstacles, you'll find them. So if I hear what you're saying, it's all about getting quiet and resetting the message when that starts to occur.
Because that's the story.
Right.
I make a mistake on something, I know I can't do anything right.
Right.
Guess what? Because I know I can't do anything right, I'm not going to be focusing on what I'm doing.
Right.
I can't do anything right. I'm going to go in the kitchen and I'm going to drop something I take out of the fridge. I'm going to go put something on the stove, forget what I was doing, and all of a sudden I'm not doing anything right. If I go and get something out of the fridge and I drop it and I say, you better slow down, chickie. I can slow down for a minute and just smile, and I could get frustrated and angry and go off and become all this drama queen. Or simply say, okay, kid, take a break, sit down, take a moment, wipe it up, and then go on. And then all of a sudden I can laugh and I can say, okay, I think I'm going to put on some music. I think I'm going to take a minute to quiet and start over.
Right.
That's my choice. But again, to me, this is where all the risks come into play. I'm taking a risk to believe in myself.
Right.
I'm taking a risk to believe if I stop for a moment, everything is going to change. I mean, there are great big risks. Do I want to open another business? That's a big risk.
Right.
Am I going to take a risk of taking a deep breath and trusting in a moment I'm going to be in a much better place? Yeah, I do. And I'm going to believe in that. I believe in miracles that are happening every day, right?
I agree.
Quite an attitude versus, and do I want to say I do that 100% of the time? No. But there's a difference where when we live in that place that makes us feel most us, that optimistic, that happy, that peace, that inner peace place that's filled with vibrancy and aliveness and passion and purpose and all of those things.
Right.
And I'm there most of the time, that becomes my home base. I will have moments when I'm depressed, moments when I feel powerless, moments when I feel stuck or overwhelmed. But the fact is, those are moments.
I like thinking of it that way. They are
There can be
moments.
periods in our life when we lived in overwhelm, or we
Right.
lived in the illusion of powerlessness, or we lived in the illusion of being stuck and never having a chance to go anywhere. But that was because of the stories we were telling ourselves.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
work. I mean, it's hard to break out of the stories.
It is.
And it's interesting to me, though, at least I'll find sometimes, you hit a stride and you're doing great, and all of a sudden, again, you get that little divot in the road and you start to replay those stories.
Right.
And then you get on yourself, at least I do, because I think, oh, I thought I had done so much work. Why is this happening again? I thought I had moved beyond this. But I think the reality is, right, it's just, we're human, and we're always going to come back to, and I think a lot of it is very mind-based when you're all up here.
Right.
And the mind is really trying to protect us, right? It's ego, but it's trying to, make sure you don't get hurt, make sure that
But
and it's not the truth, though.
Yeah,
It does
but if
not
you-
give the
yeah.
truthful message.
And if you worry about being hurt, what you're focusing on is the hurt.
And what you might be attracting is the hurt.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. When you give yourself a break and you can acknowledge all those parts of you, all right? So every time you go to some really smart response that you want to give,
Right.
are you going back to the 10-year-old who used to do that, or are you going back to the 12-year-old who used to do that? Right?
Right.
Every time you feel hurt because somebody didn't like what you're wearing or didn't like what you said or whatever the case may be, what child state are you going back to? And so I know if I feel overwhelmed, I'm going back to my 6-year-old who was overwhelmed, moving into a new house.
Right.
If I go into something else, I'm going back to this other 12-year-old or something. And so when my 12-year-old, who was a rather feisty child, shows up and something happens and I have these swear words that show up inside that I would not put out there, it's just not who I am. I laugh and say, oh, she's still alive and kicking, and I love the passion in that child, all right? And I can laugh at her rather than judge. How could I still be like that? I thought I outgrew that. No, she's still alive and kicking.
Right.
The fact is, the woman I've become no longer acts like the 12-year-old. She no longer acts like the 6-year-old. I can laugh with her,
Right.
but I'm not going to do her. You see the difference?
I do.
So
I like that.
when we have that self-acceptance and that self-love, we can just thoroughly enjoy all the parts of us, but realize, no, she's not going to show up at the business meeting. She will sabotage that
Right.
in 30 seconds or less.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You can't say, no, you can't make me
Right.
at a business meeting. Let's rephrase that sentence, right? But she would have.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
you can laugh when she shows up, but it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means she's alive and kicking.
That's right.
And just enjoy the woman you've chosen to become, the woman who's gotten the education you chose to get, the woman who's learned how to present herself in the way she chose to do so that makes her feel good about her, the way you learn to speak
Right.
versus how you would have spoken as a child.
Right.
Because sadly we do know women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, who still sound like they're 12 years old. right? But when we've made choices to grow and become who we chose to become, we need to honor that and really recognize this is the best me that I can be at the moment in time. And the more I learn, the more risks I take, the more adventures I have, the more expanded and yet the more profound I can become.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So in terms of being then the best you that you can be, you know, you've talked about quiet and mindfulness
Right.
and meditation. What else can we do to continue to evolve and grow and into the person we want to be?
Continuously looking at what do I feel called to next? I mean, notice what you're doing now in your career. I would surmise that whatever you're doing now in your career, you were doing something similar to that when you're in your 20s, when you're in your 30s, and you may be doing it differently. I'm a coach now. I used to be a therapist. Before I was a therapist, I was a social worker, right?
Right.
But all of that is in service. All of that is helping folks becoming the best of who they are, letting them recognize the stories. Look at what you're doing. You can say, oh yeah, but I'm doing this with this company. Correct. But what you're doing is supporting people, preparing for their future. You're supporting people really learning to feel good about where they are and where they're going. And you've always done that in some form.
Right. No, that's my passion. I love
Yeah,
that.
you know,
love that.
You're simply, as you grow and you learn and you become more, you have more to give to people. You have more ways of doing service, more ways of helping people.
Absolutely.
And yet, you're really simply more you.
Absolutely. You know, I was thinking too, on my drive over, there's an interesting verse in the Indian Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, that says, a mind under control is your best friend. A mind out of control is your worst enemy.
Right.
Right, which really I thought was so interesting that you and I were going to be speaking today, because it is true, right? I mean, I think a lot of what you're saying is that, you know, we're not our thoughts, we're the thinker of our thoughts.
Right.
Right, so only we really have the power to kind of change and
Yeah.
become the best we can be. It's not something that we could say, well, once I'm accepted, once I arrive, once I get the acknowledgement. I think the beauty of it is it all comes, you have the power, it all comes from within.
Right. And somebody acknowledged you when you were 20. But that's not who you are today. So if you keep looking for acknowledgement out there, you're always going to find somebody who won't.
Right.
And does that devastate you, or is that simply their opinion?
Yeah.
When you have a sense of who you are, when you have a sense that I am the best me I can be at this moment, I know my faults, I know my limitations, and I know my strengths. And I know that. So if you dislike something I said, or you dislike me because I remind you of an aunt you couldn't stand, or I remind you of a friend who's betrayed you, that's not about me.
That's right.
And if that's going to destroy my day because you didn't greet me warmly, I've given everything about me into your power to destroy or affirm.
Right.
We all want to be liked by everybody we meet. But sometimes for some of us, when we're not, we're devastated. But some of us, that's unfortunate, but I did the best I could. And we go on.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, it was entering my 40s where my mind shifted. I mean, prior to that, I mean, I would stay up for hours giving myself a hard time as to, well, why would you have said that? Could you tell that they did not like that comment? And replaying it in my head, and it was torture.
Right, yeah.
And then I think, you know, for me, the beginning of my 40s was such an enlightened time, because I started realizing that, you know what, I am trying to be the best person that I can be. And if that, what I said hurt somebody's feelings or they didn't like it, that's not on me. Like, you know, it was not intentional, right? Or I didn't mean to, or whether they like me or not is not on me. I have to be me. That's all I can control, is who I am and how I show up. And
it's it.
That's it.
That's the best you can do. And know that for those who truly want to know you, that's going to be plenty.
Oh, yes.
But those that are already set up
Yes.
to not want to like you, no matter what you do, they're not going to like you.
That's right.
And those who are open to just getting to know you, they're going to love who you are.
Which leads me to think about the book that you wrote. What was it? Good Girls.
Oh, my last book?
Yes.
Yeah, my last book is Real Women Change the World, Letting the Good Girl Die so the Real Women Can Live.
I love that title.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal. And it's so you. It really
It is. It really is. But that's because with so many of the women clients I've worked with, I don't care if they're CEO, I don't care if they're just starting out. What sabotages their career is their desire to be a good girl. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So now you have an employee who instead of working 9 to 5 doesn't like mornings, so she shows up at 10:30. And you don't want to say anything because you don't want to make her feel bad. You don't want to make her feel guilty. But in the meantime, you're getting more and more resentful.
Right.
You're getting more and more angry, resentful, and you're losing control of your business. And so rather than dealing with it and be done with it, this eats away at you.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Right? And she then becomes very entitled because she can come and go as she pleases. And now what you've done is begun the process of creating a major issue that starts spreading, because if you have other people working for you, they're going to resent the fact that she does it. They're going to resent you for letting her get away with it. All because you want to be nice.
Right.
When you're not being bad by saying to her the first time she's late, "Excuse me, could I see you in my office? I don't need to embarrass you in front of anybody, but could I see you in my office?
Right.
Could you explain to me what happened and why you didn't call in if it was an emergency, just to let us know you were going to be late? Well, I just don't like mornings." This may not be the right job for you then. And if you go into guilt because you want to be a good girl and you don't want to fire somebody, what have you done to your company and what have you done to you?
Right.
And so when you're a real woman, you're going to say to her, "Okay, sweetheart, let me tell you, the hours here are 9 to 5. I expect you to be here at 9. And if you're here at 9:15, you've got time to put your coat away. You've got time to get yourself a cup of tea or a glass of water so that we can start work at 9 o'clock. If that is too difficult, that's okay. But that means this isn't the right job for you.
Right.
So I need you to make a decision. I'm not going to be the boss that tells you. I need you to make a decision. Does this work for you? If it doesn't, this is not the right place.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but we're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great example. And another example, I think, kind of along those lines, and, talk a lot about this with, my clients that are, female executives or even friends. The guilt that we feel when we ask for something. We will ask for something, but I hope they don't think I'm difficult, right? Like, I hope I didn't overstep. Where, I think our male counterparts, are very confident about asking for things and would never even question what being asking.
No.
So again, it's along the lines of what you're saying, and
Right.
And why we think we're not going to be liked because we asked, and we're going to come across as being too demanding and
Too demanding or too needy.
right.
And both of those are really bad, and we don't want to be either demanding or needy.
Exactly.
As if somehow we should be thrown out if we have either of those qualities at any moment in time. When the fact is, we have moments when we're demanding, and we have moments when we're needy. But we're back to where do we live? Not where do we go, where do we live?
Right.
And when we are comfortable with ourselves, I know I need something and I can ask. One of the chapters in that book is on communication. One of the things women have a great propensity to do is say, "I'm sorry.
Right. True.
I'm sorry, but could you tell me the time? I'm sorry, but is that seat taken? I'm sorry, excuse me. I forgot my watch.
Right. Stop
Could
being sorry.
Right.
You didn't
Could you
do
please
it.
tell me what time is it?
Exactly.
Is that seat taken? Thank you very much. Why am I sorry? I didn't do anything, right?
Right.
But I'm apologizing, and eventually we start apologizing for living.
Yeah. So I think, again, just to kind of bring it all back in, because we've talked about so many different angles of being your best self and how to be your best
Right.
self. But I think really what I'm hearing you say is with all of these things, right, who we are, how we present ourselves, it really all comes down to self-awareness,
Right.
And being connected with self.
And appreciating the self, appreciating the woman you have chosen to become at this point in your life, or the man. appreciating who you've chosen to become at this point in your life. When you can appreciate who that is, not because he or she is perfect, not because he or she has all the answers, but because I have tried my best, not for you, but for me, to be so happy in who I am, to be so at home in my own skin, to really love what I've done with my life so far, knowing that there may be 42 other adventures out there I haven't had a chance to live yet, and I can't wait to live them.
Right.
But when I show up, I want to be present in them, and I want to thoroughly enjoy them and not spend every moment questioning, did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Did I do a lot? Did I
Being
not do
yourself.
enough? Did I do too much? Let me be me, and then you're living with your expectations, not an illusion about what everybody else expects of you.
Well, Dr. Dorothy, thank you so much. I think that is valuable advice that I think can help us all become our better selves, right? So thank you so much. I hope that you'll be back to join us again soon.
I would love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. See you soon.